Hey everybody, welcome back to my channel. I'm Yoon, and I think you can tell I'm back from, let me just undo this. I think it's fine if I undo it. I am back from filming about one of my red flags and the only exception, but I filmed an ARC video review yesterday night, but I was telling the summary to a friend today and I just said it so much better that I was like, I need to refilm it. Who cares that it's already edited? I need to refilm it, give you guys a better summary. So this is the book I read. I am counting this one as my very first ARC because it's one that I had requested and received and was approved for. So I got this from NetGalley, and I got it from NetGalley. I was approved to read it from NetGalley, and it was one where I requested it and it was approved, as opposed to where you are automatically approved. No matter what your bio is, you're just automatically approved to read it. So this one, I'm counting it as my first one because it's one I requested that was accepted. And it is, oh right, I forgot the brightness needs to be lower. A Bright Heart by Kate Chenli. And let's see if I can go to where I had bookmarked. Anyways, what was I saying? Oh, so it's A Bright Heart by Kate Chenli. And if any of you are Korean webtoon or manhwa readers or Chinese web novel readers, this one will probably be a plot that you have read at least once, you're aware of, or you absolutely love, which is I am the last one, which is how I even got to find out and request this ARC anyways. And let me change my battery. Okay, I think so. What is it about? Oh, right. Which is, so if you're aware of, or you read, or you even like from that, it is a time traveling, so it's a historical time traveling revenge story. So if you're aware or have heard of transmigration, isekai, or time traveling, then you're probably aware of what I'm going to be talking about. But our world is set in kind of a Chinese inspired fantasy world, fantasy, historical, and our main character, what I'm going to say for now isn't a spoiler as it's talked about in the very first chapter, but our main character, she's the lover of the person who just became emperor, and who essentially became emperor literally all thanks to her. She provided him with the money, she helped him with her strategic capabilities, and literally because of those two things that came from her, he was able to become emperor, because he was competing against six or some other number of brothers to become emperor. But she gets stabbed in the back, literally, when she's brought to him. And she, at that point, as she's dying on the stairs underneath him, she finds out that he never loved her. He was only using her for her money and for her strategic capabilities, and that he was actually in love and in reality in a relationship with her much more beautiful cousin. And she gets a double whammy, triple whammy even, when she finds out that her cousin was using her for her money, because the main character's dad, who passed away, was a super rich merchant. And then in order to keep her money, her cousin and her uncle murdered her mom. So essentially her mom's brother killed her to have our main character's money. So she's completely backstabbed, completely betrayed by the 2 to 3 people she had believed and trusted in this entire time. And so as she's stewing in sadness, betrayal, and anger, she pleads out one more time to anybody to give her one more chance in life so that she can achieve her revenge against them, and also to change her own fate. It gets granted. The next chapter, then she starts off several years before her death, and I think not exactly a year, but a little less than a year before she meets her ex. So she hasn't met him yet, which gives her enough time to like plan and not give him any support and have him struggle, and also just to like completely take him out of the running. I can't remember if if murder of the people who betrayed her in her first life is like one of her goals, but at the very least she doesn't want to make the guy become emperor. She doesn't want her cousin or her uncle to get the money. So that happens. That's essentially the plot of the story, and I was sold. I thought the cover was super pretty. I was so into that premise because I love a good, or at least fun, historical time traveling revenge story. So I was like, sign me up. But I was unfortunately quite disappointed. I was even more excited because it's my very first arc that got approved. So I was disappointed that I didn't end up liking it as much, and I will tell you why. So the first thing that I want to kind of establish is that all of this, the things that I wasn't happy about, is not really what I think is objective. It's a lot more subjective than objective, like the reason as to why I didn't like it. And yeah, I'm gonna get into that. So before I get into what first was, the only objective thing I think I could say is that it's very obvious. You can tell it's a debut novel, but other than that, most of this is subjective. Was the overall direction the story took. I was kind of hoping, and from the way the story was being written, I was expecting a not so complicated success to revenge story. So what I mean by that is some revenge plots are either super complicated because the main character is not the only essentially smart character in the story, so the other people who she wants revenge on are just as crafty, just as cunning, if not even more than ever. Oh wait, I gotta finish the summary. And so she goes back in time. She's determined to not let people succeed and to achieve her revenge, but when she gets back, she kind of realizes that there were a lot more things happening behind the scenes than she remembers, than she expected, especially since those things behind the scene are completely new, like they didn't happen in her first life. So she has to work around it, and it's also kind of interfering with her revenge. And yeah, so back to what I was saying. Some plots are easy because like it's a much easier road for our main character to get revenge. Most of the time it's harder because the other people are just as crafty and they can like match really well. I was kind of hoping, and it seemed like I was going to expect the first one, but then out of the blue, like her uncle is super crafty. There's like so many machination, what is that word? There's just so much more happening behind the scene. The greed that her ex has for power is a lot stronger than she remembered in her first life. So that's also kind of complicating everything. Her uncle and cousin, like I said, are being able to catch up and be just as crafty at this point. So she essentially gets entangled with the prince that was the highest chance and the most in favor to become the emperor, which was the crown prince. Was he the first prince? First prince, I think. And yeah, so the first thing that I was kind of disappointed about was how complicated the plot became and how much it kind of deviated from revenge. So I wouldn't have minded all the things that happened in the story, as long as in the end and throughout we go back to the revenge and we don't forget it. But it seems like at a certain point the revenge takes a backseat and everything she's doing is actually to deal with the new things that's happening. So that was kind of disappointing. And in relation to that, when she finally achieves like half of her revenge, I thought it was so disappointing and so lackluster because this is a spoiler because I feel like I can't say it without letting you kind of know what's going on. You know what, let me try to not spoil it. So she essentially manages to achieve revenge on like halfway through. So if you remember, she wanted revenge on her ex and her family, like her uncle and cousin. She manages to fulfill revenge on her ex. However, the way the revenge happened, I feel like I can't even call it revenge because yes, she achieves it, but it happened in like a spur of the moment, and it wasn't in a way where it's like her carefully cultivating her revenge to achieve this moment in which she finally delivers her revenge. It wasn't that so much as like in the chaos she needed to take this chance or she would die, basically. So it wasn't like leading up to her fulfilling her revenge, but just like it just happened. You know what I mean? So it was very much, I was expecting this build up, but it was just like I said, it just happened. So that was so disappointing for me. I would have wanted like a bit more of a cultivated revenge, like her revenge, her actions, her decisions leading her up to that point. I didn't get it, so that was disappointing. And another part is the romance. If you guys are aware, one of my struggles is to invest or like understand, and in order to invest in the romances in these plots. And unfortunately I could not here, and I will tell you why. Because for me, I just didn't understand why the guy fell for our main characters as hard and as quickly as he did. Same for our main character, but hers was kind of like she was forcing herself to be in denial, and then all of a sudden she just chooses not to be. So as sudden as, like, I still don't know why she likes him, but as sudden as her saying like I love you is, I kind of get why it felt sudden, because she was just trying so hard to be in denial. But for the guy, I was just so shocked. And it was so abrupt that I even thought that maybe he was also somehow sent back in time with his memories, and in his first life, which the book would then like tell us in a flashback or something, he fell for her for some reason, and because he remembers, that's why he fell for her so quickly and so hard in her second life. But that was never the case. So I just don't understand why he fell for her so quickly. I also didn't like the reason for why he fell for her so quickly, because it really relied on the trope of not like other girls, and I feel like at this point in my life I'm just not into that, especially with the way we're thinking, which was a very classic trope back in like the early 2010s, if you read the Wattpad, or if you've seen the TikToks making like parody movies or being parody TikToks or being sarcastic about it. It was very much that kind of not like other girls trope, and so I wasn't into it. I didn't like how the only reason she caught his attention was being so different, in that like she's not pretty but she's sharp, she's witty, she's just so much more skilled than the other girls, like in terms like everything except beauty she's got, kind of. I'm exaggerating clearly, but it just felt like that. I wasn't a big fan of like that being essentially the entire reason for why she was so liked by both the male lead and like the princess who becomes one of her closest friends. So that reliance on the trope really killed it for me, and essentially, yeah, that's basically why I ended up not liking it as much. I still gave it like a 3.5 rating. It did do really well on, the plot was still fun, albeit slow, and it did do a really good job on the vibes of the Korean or Chinese webtoon, web novel, revenge plot. Like, it was very much those plot vibes, which made it really fun. But, you know, like, the deviation and the romance were disappointing for me to read. I still think you should give it a try if you're into that plot. You might enjoy the complications or the way the revenge kind of becomes a bit harder for her to achieve. And there is one quote that I think will become very popular if once this book gets published. It's coming out October 23rd, by the way, so keep an eye out. So essentially, our male lead has a vow to himself to never physically attempt to harm his brothers or like his competitors, because he knows that the king, his father, loves all of them and he doesn't want to get them hurt. So he has a vow, like a personal vow, to not engage in violence or like poison or anything. But he does tell her, if any of them tries to hurt you, Mingxin, I will break my promise. So I know that that can become very popular. That quote did hit pretty well, but you know, yeah. So that was what I thought of the story and how my first arc went. That was it for this video. I hope you guys enjoyed it. I hope you guys give the book a chance. You might like it more than me. I did enjoy the premise. It did deliver on a little bit, but like I said, I had some personal disappointments with it. And yeah, that was it for this video. I will see you guys next time. Bye.